Decentralization. Decentralize your life.
Okay, welcome to the American Curmudgeon channel. I am the American Curmudgeon, and today is Sunday, and you know what that means? That's right, it's a new episode of Decentralization Sunday, which is where when I say we, I mean the royal we, I mean me. I discuss VHS, I discuss CDs, and I discuss DVDs, and maybe sometimes cassettes, but no vinyl. I'm done with vinyl. It's too heavy, takes up too much room, and quite frankly, I think it's very overrated. Anyway, let's move on to one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite horror directors, Mr. George A. Romero. He, of course, who pretty much invented the zombie genre, as it were, way back in 1968, the year of my birth. And I know it's gone longer than the Trinity, the unholy trinity of zombie movies, which, of course, started with Night of the Living Dead, then Dawn of the Dead, and then Day of the Dead. I'm concentrating on Day of the Dead, but I'm going to show you what I have right here. This is Day of the Dead on VHS cassette. It's not a cassette that was bought in a store or anything like that. This was taped off of 2 tape decks, which is the way we used to do it in the early 90s. And I used to work at a place called Producers Tape Service, which manufactured raw videotapes and delivered them to businesses in the Detroit area. This one is a white casing, some comedy, Day of the Dead, and Ghostbusters. Well, it's your lucky day because I have this totally synced up for Day of the Dead. So let's put that in, shall we? Okay, unlike some of you unlucky bastards, I actually have this is a DVD and VHS combo that I bought. I bought it refurbished probably about 10 years ago. These came out about 20 years ago and making the rounds where you could record anything that you have on VHS onto a DVD-R or DVD Plus or whatever it might be. But nobody does that shit. Everybody streams everything. Those people are losers. And that's why, of course, I have a Decentralization Sunday show. Let's talk about what we have here. On DVD, I have Night of the Living Dead, They Won't Stay Dead. This is the special edition. I believe Night of the Living Dead it's a public domain now. So I think there's a few things that you can just go ahead and you can make DVDs of. I think Night of the Living Dead is one of them. George Romero never made a penny on this. He didn't own the rights. Of course, the full-length feature. You get a direct scene access, call up NEC, the push of a button. How revolutionary. The poster, biography, an interactive trivia, questions and answers, and movie credits. Whoa. So there you go. This is way out of print. This is, of course, Dawn of the Dead. This has got the widescreen audio commentary with George Romero and Tom Savini and Chris Romero, who is this assistant director, and theatrical trailers, TV spots, radio spots, poster and advertising gallery, George Romero biography, and comic book preview. That's a lot of cool bonus stuff. But this is Dawn of the Dead. And what we're specifically talking about is Day of the Dead. Now, Day of the Dead, really? We got tracking problems? Let me work on this. That's the problem with doing things with old VHS. Okay, so Day of the Dead, got it for only $3.95, as you can see right there. See? It's got widescreen presentation. It's got audio commentary with George Romero and Tom Savini, Cletus Anderson, and Lori Cardelli, who's the actress of the lead character, and then another commentary with filmmaker Roger Avery, who came up with Quentin Tarantino. He co-wrote Pulp Fiction. But this is what I bought over the weekend. Why did I buy it again? Because this is the collector's edition. See, I'm a collector. This is the collector's edition. It's got a way cooler packaging. I would love to have this on a poster. As you can see, you got Bub right there going crazy and shooting. You got Dr. Frankenstein right there. And then you've got the evil, what the hell was his name? Rhodes who is the general, and then all these other zombies. This movie, when it came out, it really bummed a lot of people out. It didn't really honestly do well. I saw it right when it came out. I was a huge Dawn of the Dead fan. And also, the reason why I bought this is because it's got all this extra special features. New high definition transfer, new documentary called World's End, The Legacy of Day of the Dead, which I watched last night, audio commentary with George Romero, but it's got behind the scenes footage from Tom Savini's archives, photo galleries, and my favorite theatrical trailers, which I don't remember ever seeing these, and then even cooler, TV spots, which are TV advertisements that I don't remember ever seeing on the TV, and I watched a shitload of TV in 1985.
Day of the Dead.
They have overrun us, you know. Something like 400,000 to 1 by my calculations.
Day of the Dead.
It could be years before we know exactly what we're dealing with here.
Day of the Dead. Gruesome plenty. The darkest day of horror the world has ever known. George A. Romero's Day of the Dead.
Three scenes of violence. No one under 17 admitted. Starts Friday at a theater or drive-in near you. Check newspapers for showtimes.
This is definitely worth the $5.95 to own this thing again. It's in perfect condition. As you can see, it's got the same packaging on this as this one right here with Bub. But it's got some cool pictures of a guy getting his face ripped off and more gore, and then a whole sort of like dissertation about the film. And what I like is you take the DVD out, and you get first there was Night of the Living Dead, then Dawn of the Dead, and now the darkest day the world has ever known, George Romero's Day of the Dead, which I think is pretty lame. You know, you got it goes black, then it's purple, and then it's light blue. Kind of gay. So I don't know. Here's the deal with the movie. Day of the Dead, as you can see, it's playing right behind me right now. It's not quite as revolutionary as Night of the Living Dead was. Night of the Living Dead came out in 1968 and scared the shit out of everyone, and it blew doors, and it was very, very successful. Unfortunately, well, I think it was made for like $127, and it made millions over the years. But I don't think a lot of that money went into George Romero's pocket. You know what I mean? I think he got screwed on the budget for that, or on the distribution, and he might have made a bad deal. But at least it came out, it made history. And I saw it probably around 1979, 1980. I'm trying to remember if I was in the single digits or if I was already a preteen. But all I know is that I saw it late at night on some chiller theater thing, and it scared the shit out of me because it was black and white. It was really creepy. Dawn of the Dead is almost like a cartoon. It's got a lot of action. It's got a lot of comedy, and it's just, I personally think it's just as revolutionary as Night of the Living Dead, and it was released a decade later. So Night of the Living Dead came out in 1968. Dawn of the Dead came out in 1978. Very 70s-ish. There is so many different versions, different director's cuts, different versions for Italy and Scandinavia or wherever the fuck, but from what I gather, the actual DVD rights are being sort of like in limbo right now. So if you find Dawn of the Dead on DVD, grab it, because you might not be able to find that again. There's a lot of director's cuts floating around out there. The one I have is pretty decent, but they got like box sets with like 4 different versions of the movie. I don't think I really need that many, but I had to get Day of the Dead because I wanted to see the documentary about it. Seemed pretty cool. Day of the Dead is not the same type of movie as the first two. I don't think it's quite as revolutionary. It came out almost 10 years after Dawn of the Dead. Came out in 1985. I saw it at the movie theater when I was, I think, 16 years old. And I saw it at a midnight show, which is where I would always see Dawn of the Dead. Here in Metro Detroit, Dawn of the Dead would play at either Oakland Mall, which is in Troy, Michigan, or Universal Mall, which is on DeQuinder and I believe 13 Mile. I don't know. They don't have movies at Universal Mall In fact, I think Universal Mall is gone. I don't know. I don't fucking hang out in malls. Okay. But all I know is that Dawn of the Dead was always featured almost every single weekend at midnight. Then Day of the Dead came out. It was a limited release and it kind of tanked. And you know what? I didn't really like it when it first came out. Had no real funny parts. The acting was really overblown. The guy who plays the main sort of like general military guy, he goes under the name Rhodes. Joe, what's his name? Joe, not gonna work here anymore. Joe Pilato. He plays Rhodes, and it's a performance. That's all I gotta say. It's way over the top. A lot of screaming, a lot of swearing, a lot of threatening.
I'm running this monkey farm now, Frankenstein, and I want to know what the fuck you're doing with my time.
It's kind of in its own way a cartoon just as much as Dawn is, but it's not. There's no lightness to it. There's nothing goofy about it. Dawn of the Dead is kind of goofy. And even the blood in it is so hyper, it's sort of hyper stylized and almost cartoonish looking. It's like stage blood. It's not, it doesn't look natural at all. And it's by design, especially from reading and watching different George Romero documentaries. George Romero wanted it to look like a comic book, wanted it to look like, like not realistic, just almost like cartoonishly crazy. It's a psychotic fucking movie. Day of the Dead is dark. It's gritty. It all takes place in an underground military mine. You feel the claustrophobicness. You feel the cabin fever or mine fever, as they said in the documentary that's on the DVD. You know what it reminds me of? The same kind of claustrophobic feeling that you get with watching John Carpenter's The Thing. It's that kind of shit, where it's like all in one location, almost the entire movie, which is good for budget reasons, probably not the best for keeping a movie interesting. That being said, the movie has held up pretty darn well. And I think a lot of the people that wrote off Day of the Dead as not being nearly as good as Dawn of the Dead or Night of the Living Dead, they've come around, and I think they've found that this is a unique movie on its own and has definitely stood the test of time and aged very well, much like myself. This is a 40-year-old movie. I would recommend it if you're into zombie movies. If you've been watching Walking Dead, the main guy who directed The Walking Dead, Greg Nicotero, he plays one of the military guys in this movie, was a close assistant to working with Tom Savini, who was at the time the pinnacle of practical gore effects. So there is not, one thing I gotta say about this movie, and definitely Dawn of the Dead, there's not a hint. There's no such thing. There was no such thing back then as CGI, but it was all real. All the blood, all the zombies munching into people's necks and pulling apart their entrails and their chests and pulling out their intestines and guts is all real. And I like that. I'll take the original cantina scene in Star Wars against any of the prequels and any of the newer CGI fests that it turned out to be. Any day of the week, I don't give a shit. I'll take practical effects over digital effects anytime, anywhere. And the thing that sucks about George Romero is he actually started using really bad digital effects later. Particularly, I think there's one movie called Island of the Dead, and that has a shit ton of CGI and just garbage. So stick with the original trilogy: Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead. It's really all about making sure that when they take away our media through streaming, licensing problems, because, when you log into any of the streaming services, they say leaving soon. This ain't leaving soon, man. It's with me forever. And that's the whole reason why I celebrate decentralization and decentralized media. Okay. Well, that's it for this week. I will see you next Sunday for another episode of Decentralization Sunday. And if you want, in the comments, if you like it, tell me your opinion about the George Romero zombie movies, which ones you like, which ones you don't like, and more importantly, What do you think I should review next? I might own it already. Let's go for it. All right, I'll see you next Sunday here on the American Curmudgeon Channel.